Jeffrey Baffler here, HumbleBumble Chess Services. It is June 28th, a Sunday, and I'm going to talk about a topic today. As you know, we talk about all different chess-related topics. Probably my focus is pretty heavily skewed towards the tournament chess player, the in-person tournament chess player. But we talk about all different topics. And one of those topics is great players. And so a great player that I've mentioned like briefly here and there is Garry Kasparov. Now, it's time for him to get a more detailed discussion on the HumbleBumble channel. And this is a guy who I think is easily in the conversation for the greatest chess player ever. Now, the tricky part when you get into these debates, and of course they're always a debate, no one's ever going to prove anything of who the greatest player of all time is. Now, of course, the up-and-coming players is hard to judge because, you know, they have brilliant performances and all, but they don't have the longevity that gives their chess skills context and stuff. Gary's, still very much alive. Not that old of a man, but his world championship days are, many years behind him. He was the 13th world champion, and so what can you say about him? Bobby Fischer was 11, Karpov was 12, and Kasparov was 13. All I can say is if you're interested in him, you've picked a good subject to be interested in, because he has a tremendous amount that's been written about him. So we're going to get into some of the books that I have, but as I said, there's a real. It's fun to debate this. You can go back to historical players, Lasker, Pillsbury, Tarrasch, Steinitz, Alekin, all players from 80, 90, 100 years ago, and debate, if they had time to modernize their repertoire and the opening repertoire and things like that, would they be able to compete? Did they have the raw talent to compete? A genius is a genius no matter what year that they were born in. But technique does evolve and does develop. Our technique on how to play different chess positions has evolved, so it even filters down to the amateur ranks. But today's subject is Garry Kasparov. I think that, as much as I love players like Alekin and Fischer and Botvinnik, Smyslov, all those great players from the past, Rubinstein is a real favorite of mine. I've got to say Gary's probably top of the list. Again, it's not something you can scientifically, measure out and definitively prove. But when you look at several factors that point to his greatness, is one, the quality of the opposition he faced in matches and tournaments was the very best players on the planet that he could get to sit down in front of him. He was so dominant that one of his challengers, this is after the World Championship basically became privatized. When he took control of that and took it away from the International Chess Federation, the free market wouldn't support one of his challengers having a match because they just gave the guy no chance at all. And this is a guy named Alexei Shurov, who world championship level guy, and Kasparov's respect among chess players was such that nobody would back a decent prize fund to have them play, and the match never took place. But Alexei Shurov definitely won the right to face him, but if you can have someone as brilliant, a genius like Shurov, couldn't get backing of the chess world to play Kasparov. What does that say about Kasparov? How good he was. So the quality of his opposition, but I think more interest to chess players is the quality of his games. If you look at Fischer's games, yeah, he had a lot of very good games, and all the world championships and elite level grandmasters had those games, but on a consistent basis, Kasparov was in there. Excuse me. He was creating masterpieces that even other grandmasters struggle to really understand and comprehend. So I urge you to explore him as a player and look especially at his peak years, which were in the 80s and early 90s. Pardon me. I just want to go over some of the books that I've got on him. There's a, let's see here, there's the Fighting Chess, and there's, I believe, 2 volumes of this. I think I only have the 1 volume here. Whoa. Garry wrote, Mr. Kasparov wrote a lot. And I'm sorry, yeah, where are we here? There we go. You know, so he had epic struggles with the 12th World Championship Karpov. Here's Greatest Games, volumes 1 and 2. And then there's the My Great Predecessors series. I'll show you a couple. I've got, I think there's 7 or 8 volumes of that. Well, basically these great predecessors were a couple different things. They were Garry paying homage to his predecessors and also comparing how chess evolved. At the beginning of the first couple volumes, he tried very hard to tie the world champion into some sort of, you know, spirit of the times, the zeitgeist, spirit of the times, that the champion reflected that, and that kind of didn't go very well, or didn't hold up very long. World champions may or may not have influences of the times that they live in. I don't know that that's a real fruitful area to explore. But the bottom line is, when we're talking about this gentleman, the quality of his game, the depths of his conceptions, not just his combinations. Obviously, his combinational vision, he was extremely strong. Just like if you were talking about heavyweight boxers, all of them punch really hard. But it was his positional sense, his ability to build a good position, a complicated position, and put pressure on the other person, where the other person always had to solve problems, even just to keep up with the flow of the game, to keep the game on a level footing. The person had to be calculating extremely deeply and making judgments. So I urge you, if you haven't, you know, if you're kind of caught up with the Magnus Carlsen era and you've kind of passed him over, I urge you to drop back and go back to the 13th world champion, Garry Kasparov, and look at his games. Probably best to do it on a database where you can have an engine looking over your shoulder. Because as I said, you know, for us as amateur players, his conceptions are going to be very deep and very difficult to follow. So even with his explanations in the notes that he writes to his games, it's still hard. So I think an engine looking over your shoulder is going to be the way to go. That way you can drop back and explore possibilities that Garry may not have commented on. Maybe he thought they were obvious or whatever. But yeah, Garry Kasparov, what a genius. What a transcendent talent, and what a gift to us chess players and chess lovers that he's left in the form of his games and analysis. So yeah, Garry Kasparov, highly recommend you explore. There's many books written about him, and it will help you as technical development for your game, but also enjoyment, even if you're not a competitive person, just to enjoy it like you would tour an art museum and look at the masterpieces. Thanks for your attention today. Have a great day. Jeffrey Baff from HumbleBumble Chess. Find me on YouTube. And as always, like, comment, share, and subscribe if you feel these are of value to you. Have a great day.